It is midnight. You have work tomorrow. You know you should be asleep. And yet here you are, phone in hand, lights off, watching something you have already seen before. You are not even enjoying it, but you cannot stop. This is not laziness. It is not a lack of discipline. What is happening inside your brain right now is far stranger than you think. Your body has been running on someone else's schedule all day. The alarm pulled you out of sleep before you were ready. The meetings ran over. The deadlines stacked up. Every hour was spoken for before it even arrived. And somewhere deep in the part of your brain that tracks freedom and personal agency, a quiet pressure started building. Psychologists call it revenge bedtime procrastination. The term was popularized in Western research after going viral in China, where the phrase Baofu Xing Ao Ye, literally translated as revenge staying up late, described the exhausted but wired nighttime habits of millions of overworked young professionals. Duigu Balin, a clinical psychologist who has studied the pattern extensively, describes it as the brain's way of stealing back time that the day refused to give. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It is compensating. Think about what autonomy actually means to the human nervous system. Researchers at the University of Rochester, including Edward Deasy and Richard Ryan, spent decades developing what is now called self-determination theory. One of its central findings is that the need for autonomy, the feeling that your actions are genuinely your own, is not a preference. It is a psychological need, as fundamental as food or rest. When that need goes unmet for long enough, your system finds a way to meet it. Nighttime is the only window left. During the day, your schedule belongs to someone else. Your employer, your school, your family, your commute. The hours are carved up and distributed before you get a say. But when the lights go off and the house goes quiet, something shifts. Nobody is asking anything of you. There are no deliverables, no expectations, no performance. For the first time in 16 hours, the next hour is yours. And your brain, which has been tracking this deficit all day, is not about to give that up just because the clock says you should. So it keeps you awake, not out of spite, out of survival. The researcher Floor Kroos at Utrecht University ran a series of studies on bedtime procrastination, which she defines as going to bed later than intended without a valid external reason. What she found was striking. People who reported lower levels of self-regulation during the day were significantly more likely to procrastinate at bedtime. But it was not simply about willpower running out. It was about the day having depleted something specific, the sense that your time belonged to you. Your brain is trying to solve a real problem. The solution just happens to be destroying your sleep. Here is what happens next. You stay up past midnight. Your phone screen floods your retinas with blue light, and your pineal gland, the small pine cone-shaped structure deep inside your brain responsible for releasing melatonin, reads that light as a signal that the sun is still up. Melatonin production drops. Your circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour internal clock that governs nearly every biological process in your body, gets pushed forward. Sleep onset delays by 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes more. But here is what most people do not realize. It is not just the light. Even if you turned off the screen, your brain would still resist sleep. Because the real issue is not the phone. The phone is just the tool your brain reached for to fill the time it finally reclaimed. The scroll is almost beside the point. What your nervous system actually needs in that moment is not entertainment. It needs to feel like a person again, not a function. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker, author of one of the most comprehensive modern studies on sleep, describes the circadian rhythm as one of the most powerful forces in human biology. It does not merely influence when you feel tired. It governs immune function, memory consolidation, emotional regulation, metabolic rate, and cardiovascular health. When you shave even 90 minutes off a single night's sleep, you cut your natural killer cell activity, your immune system's frontline defense, by nearly 70%. One night. And when bedtime procrastination becomes a pattern, the damage compounds. Chronic sleep deprivation does not announce itself dramatically. It creeps. You stop noticing how tired you are because your baseline shifts. You reach for more caffeine. Your emotional reactions become slightly larger than the situation's warrant. Your ability to concentrate narrows. Your decision-making slows. And the next day, your schedule is just as full as the day before, which means the autonomy deficit just got worse. This is the loop. And the loop is self-reinforcing in a way that makes it genuinely difficult to interrupt. Because the worse your sleep gets, the worse your self-regulation becomes. And the worse your self-regulation becomes, the more your brain craves that late-night window of unstructured time. Dugu describes it as a coping mechanism that creates the very problem it is trying to solve. So what actually breaks the cycle? Not discipline alone, not going to bed earlier by sheer force of will. Because if you go to bed earlier without addressing the autonomy deficit, your brain will simply resist sleep for longer. You will lie there staring at the ceiling, restless, irritable, and resentful, which is arguably worse than the scrolling. Researchers studying self-determination and behavioral regulation have found that giving yourself a structured, protected window of genuinely unstructured time, somewhere between arriving home and preparing for sleep, is enough to prevent the overnight rebound. Not hours, 30 minutes. Gadget-free, obligation-free, agenda-free, a walk, sitting outside, reading something you chose purely because you wanted to. Not because it is productive, not because it is improving you, just because it is yours. When that window exists earlier in the day, the late-night craving loses most of its charge. Your brain's autonomy account is no longer overdrawn. The pressure that was building since the alarm went off that morning has somewhere to go before it becomes desperate. This is not a sleep hack. It is an identity reset. Because what revenge bedtime procrastination is really telling you, underneath the scrolling, underneath the blue light, underneath the insomnia, is that you have structured your day so completely around external demands that your own nervous system has to steal time from your health just to feel like it exists. That is worth sitting with for a moment. Researcher Christina Sharma, whose work on identity and time perception explores how people relate to their own schedules, describes the modern workday as a kind of self-erasure, not malicious, but cumulative. Every meeting accepted, every task completed, every obligation honored is also a small subtraction from the felt sense of being a person with desires rather than a machine with outputs. By the time evening arrives, many people have been functionally absent from their own lives for 14 hours. No wonder your brain refuses to let go of the night. The ancient version of you did not have this problem. For most of human history, the structure of the day was porous. Work and rest blurred together. Daylight determined activity, but within that, there was improvisation, moments of stillness, of wandering, of doing nothing in particular. The rigid 8-hour block of sustained performance under artificial light is an evolutionary novelty. Your brain has not caught up. It still expects those small, scattered moments of autonomy throughout the day. And when they do not come, it demands them all at once, in the dark, at the worst possible time. Understanding this does not make the phone any less bright. It does not make the pull of the scroll any less real. But it changes what you are actually dealing with. You are not fighting laziness. You are not fighting addiction. You are negotiating with a nervous system that is doing exactly what it was designed to do: protect your sense of self in the only window it has available. Give it an earlier window, 30 minutes, just for you. Not productive, not optimized, not earned, just yours. And tonight, when the lights go off and the phone starts to glow, your brain might, for the first time in a long time, already have what it was looking for.